Welcome to the Market Technology Resiliency Talk. In the age of COVID-19, I'm Brad Peterson, CTO and CIO at Nasdaq, and I'm joined with my colleague, Donald Beery, who runs global technical operations for Nasdaq. So first, a little bit about Nasdaq that you may not know. So of course, you're familiar with the Nasdaq Stock Market. We were the first electronic exchange. We've diversified and grown into a global technology organization. So we provide technology to other exchanges, solutions for corporations to run their companies when they grow up to be public companies, governance solutions, and investor relations solutions. We also have expanded to running and operating not just equity markets or stock markets, but all different investment type markets in North America and Northern Europe. And we have, of course, our listings business that is home to some great brands. Our host, Datadog, recently went public on Nasdaq. We also have, they're in good company. We have the top 4 most innovative companies, the top 5 most admired brands, and the top 5 largest firms. Hopefully many of you have invested in. They've been in the news as we've all been working from home, and there's been an acceleration of the adoption of the cloud and software as a service trend. These companies have really accelerated their growth recently. Also, something surprising that we weren't planning on, but is a pleasant surprise for our business, which is the number of IPOs that have occurred. So there's a list of ones that occurred last year, some large ones like Warner Music, Zoom, of course, Lyft, CrowdStrike, and Datadog. But we've also had over 69 IPOs that have gone public since April 2020 from this year. So our business is global, it's resilient, and it's technology based. So we're very much a key piece of the financial infrastructure and technology infrastructure for global capital markets around the world. Today I'm gonna invite Don to tell you a little bit about what we've been going through during the global pandemic. So Don, thank you.
Hey, thanks, Brad. It's exciting to be here and participate in Dash and share our experiences throughout the pandemic. I'm running global operations for Nasdaq, and what does that really mean, right? So Nasdaq delivers the markets that accelerate economic progress. But at times like this, with COVID, the pandemic, what the real world really needs is justice to be reliably there. Our mission in global operations is to run and maintain these markets, not just for Nasdaq, but for the market participants, for the economies they support around the world. We built the best-in-class trading platforms, developed the best-in-class organization, and regardless of what happens with the pandemic and the market conditions, Nasdaq will always reliably be there for you. So my job today is to take you through and understand the responsibility, the challenges, and hopefully impart a few bits of information that you can take away with you. So we'll be sharing about our operational excellence program here at Nasdaq and how success is first based on trust. And then once we have trust, we have best-in-class execution. Okay, so let's start with the market functionality called the MWCB, or the market-wide circuit breaker. It's one of the foundations of fair and orderly markets is price discovery, a fair understanding of the stock's value. So during times of volatility, the understanding of the value of a stock could potentially be misunderstood. To protect investors, the SEC has put in place safeguards to protect the US markets. And that's where we come to the MWCB, or the market-wide circuit breaker. So now I'm going to explain this. It may not be so simple. It looks simple, but it's a drop in the value measured within a single day. There's 3 different levels. At different levels, the circuit breakers will trigger a halt, depending on the time of day. It defines how long the halt will last. They're measured against the S&P 500 index. You take a look at the S&P 500 index that closed at the previous day and compare it to the current time. So we have 3 levels, the 7%, 13%, and 20%. At 7%, there's a 15-minute halt. At 13%, a 15-minute halt. At 20%, we halt for the remainder of the trading session. So these halts are meant to allow investors to calm themselves, perhaps reset their trading algorithms and try to understand what's really going on with their investments. Now, this was all very confusing, but I have an easy way of explaining it to you because I'm a father of 3. And I'm going to share with you a simple analogy that I have with my daughter. Sometimes kids can be emotional and have temper tantrums. And there's a wonderful cure for that. It's called the timeout. Timeout gives them time to find their inner peace, bring the world into order. Now, there are some folks that say it's better just to let the tantrum play itself out, find their own equilibrium. Well, as a lot of parents will tell you, the tantrum can run its course, but it might result in the child accidentally hurting themselves or hurting others. And then taking it back to where we are, it comes to an investment. None of us want to accidentally hurt our own wealth or the wealth of others. So if someone asks you to explain what's the market-wide circuit breaker, it's simply a timeout. It's a timeout that happens at 7, 13, and 20% drops. And if it make it to 20%, you pick up your toys and you go home. So let's take a look at the timeline now of what occurred in March. So at the top, you see the 4 market-wide circuit breakers. But you see some other important dates with regards to COVID. On March 9th, we started our physical distancing. And by physical distancing, I mean we sent half the staff home. We split our organizations. We had Team A and Team B. The teams were chosen within each office, and we made sure that each team had the capability of running the markets that they support on their own. We began a rotation of critical members of those teams. Team A would come into the office for a week. We would do a very rigorous cleaning over the weekend, and then Team B would come in the following week. What you don't see here is the compassion and trust that was established by our CEO, Dina Friedman. In March, she started a series of video conferences. I don't want to call them town halls because that kind of lessens what they were. But Dina started this sincere conversation with all of us. First and foremost, was her concern was our safety. She encouraged us to stay at home if we felt safer there, take care of our families. She encouraged us to reach out to Nasdaq if we had other concerns, and even to herself directly if they weren't being addressed. So the communications continued. Our people team, all the folks on our executive team, they continued with that same message and built a level of trust within the organization. All of our managers, we started daily team meetings. Very simple agenda. How's your health? How's your family? How's everyone doing? And these daily team meetings continue to promote trust and build camaraderie. Within my own team, we had special themes. Every day had a theme. And we shared something more personal about ourselves. What was our favorite stock? What was our first job? Little funny things that brought us a little bit closer and built trust within our team. So it's much easier to be great when you trust everyone you're working with. So now let's take a look at some of the volume that was going on during March. So what's going on in the world markets? Volume, incredible volume. Global uncertainty had everyone finding themselves repositioning, protecting their savings. It's nothing strange. Folks worked really hard for where they were and they didn't want to lose that. The good news is that system capacity is part of Nasdaq's operational excellence program. We have engineers that work 40 plus weekends a year. They want to make sure we understand the capabilities of our platforms regardless of the market conditions. We throw a massive amount of kit at this, and we make sure everyone is ready to support all the different levels, whether it's an overall volume for a single trading day or a microburst for some intense trading. And additionally, to keep a level of comfort, what we do is we scale our systems to provide 2x of capacity of the previous highest trading day. So whatever was the highest before, we've got double the next day. Well, in January, if you told us there were going to be 20 billion messages that we'd have to process in a day, we would say that's going to be a huge day. And the reality is that we use 2 times capacity. We actually surged to 5 times capacity in some of our systems. We were dealing with 60 billion plus messages a day. And it was really nice to see the work that we've been doing these 40 plus weekends really paid off. You need to plan for the big days. And that's what was going on in volume. But then we step into the March circuit breakers. Okay, here we go. March 9th. Uncertainty is pervasive. Think of something you do just in case something happens. But the thing that you're preparing for never happens. I'll give an example. I was on a vacation recently, and I decided to take my boys fishing. We went out in the ocean. We were with some other families. We rented a boat and we were out there fishing. Spent about an hour away out there, not catching much. So the captain and his first mate said, pull up the lines, we're going to go somewhere else. I look over and I see my youngest sitting by the engine. I say, you know what? This is a gigantic motor. Why don't you come sit at the front of the boat with the rest of us so that, you don't fall in the ocean when he takes off. Well, guess what? The captain starts to move the boat and the engine exploded. It sounded like a bomb. The engine flew over the boat, and fell into the water. A huge fire in the back of the boat. It was amazing to watch the captain and the first mate execute what they had clearly practiced. What would never happen. They immediately said, fire. The two of them ran to opposite sides of the boat. They grabbed their fire extinguishers. They ran to the fire. Disable, disarm. They pulled the pins. They grabbed the handles. They hit the buttons to spray onto the fire. Guess what? The fire extinguishers were empty. They did everything operationally right, but the extinguishers did not work. They press, they shake. They did everything they rehearsed, but the darn extinguishers let them down. So, well, another father and I, we were putting life preservers on our kids. We were ready to jump off the boat, but they ended up using a blanket to put the fire in. But they did everything that they prepared for in this emergency, but it didn't work out. So you really have to finish from front to back everything that you're preparing for. And that brings us back to the market-wide circuit breaker on March 9th. S&P 500 is falling to level 1, and we're about to trigger a circuit breaker that's never been needed in production. Now, we practice. Remember I said 40 weekends a year. 40 weekends a year we're testing. Of course, some of those weekends are assigned to the market-wide circuit breaker. So we're confident. But I can tell you I chewed a few fingernails off that day. Anyway, the opening cross happens at 9:30. Circuit breakers trigger behind it. Every stock opened, and then every stock halted like a charm. Exhale, breathe. Okay, but the timer starts, and we only have 15 minutes, and then the stocks need to open. Take another deep breath. Allow the systems to process. All our operational processes are happening. All good. Markets open, and we start trading. And the best part is that the timeout worked. Markets calm down, and we continue trading. Prepare, and practice for the worst, because the worst can happen. That's the message there. Okay, now we're looking forward to March 12th. Here we go again, same show. Opening cross at 9:30. Boom, halt at 9:31. Thanks to the amazing engineers who have designed our system, everything opens on time, everything halts as expected. Markets open every morning, and we never take that for granted. So let me share a little bit about our process. Every morning before COVID, every single day, at 2 a.m., a team of engineers comes in and brings up the systems and confirms the system health. Every morning before this pandemic, we run a global call through the market open. All the teams participate, business and technology operations, we're all there, named attendance. Each participant in testing for the system health, system changes, you run down and validate everything about the platform and your market infrastructure. Finding folks, if you need them, is not a problem because they're on the phone. But sometimes incidents happen. There are deviations from normal operations, and that generates an incident management process. It's important. It's an important part of Nasdaq's OpEx program. We have policies, procedures. We really practice. We have run books. We have all different opportunities for people to test the incident management process. And then when incidents actually do happen, we measure each one. How did we do? What can we make better? What were we great at? And what can we apply to other platforms? And then one small but important part of the incident management process is co-location. The operation team sits right next to the engineers who have coded these systems. When we go outside normal operations, an incident is called, and we are immediately joined together to resolve these incidents. 2 eyes become 4 eyes, become 6 eyes, become 8 eyes. We're all working together to resolve these incidents shoulder to shoulder. Of course, everyone can't be there. We have a well-practiced method of communicating. Our technical operations team is a well-oiled machine. They pull the folks we need into these incidents. And we even have a stenographer who types in anything that's going on in these events and just records what's happening during these issues for people who need to check offline, either on their phones or on their computers. So that's how we gather ourselves for incidents. But things can be more troubling. So then we look on to what happens in the future. Next, we look at what I call the spinal tap events, or the next layer of events. If you remember from spinal tap, the amplifier goes to 10. Well, now we're going to take it to 11. It's a movie that many of you rock lovers may be aware of. But what it's talking about is things can always get worse, right? Or things can be always amplified. We had a pandemic causing uncertainty, causing market volatility, things we've never seen before now. And now, on the 13th, we tell everyone to work from home. So we turn it up to 11, another layer of fun. And so lucky for Nasdaq, BCP is part of our OpEx program. We have a program, we have tools supplied by our risk team, but most importantly, we have the lessons learned from Sandy. Remember I said we measure every incident to see what we can do better? You all remember the Hurricane Sandy? It was a devastating storm. Well, Nasdaq was ready for Hurricane Sandy. But some of us had dedicated lines while others had home service. What if their system wasn't set up right? What if our VPN concentrators in the data center couldn't handle everyone working from home? So we had a fix for that. We sent a small army into the data center. We took a room that was meant for 10 and we sent a small army in, and markets ran as normal. So what did we learn from that? Practice all the time. Any sign of poor weather, we practice our BCP. We tell the teams to work from home. Signs of snow, go work from home for a few days. You want to celebrate a great event? That's all right. Take off and go celebrate it. We have multiple copies of our operation centers all across the US and Europe. And each of us are practicing this work from home. This gives us a comfort that we have the right setup, the right data center capacity to support the connectivity, and our processes will scale globally. So we practice our BCP, and you should practice your BCP because eventually you'll need it. All right, now we're looking at Mnuchin. He comes to us and he tells us that markets are orderly. Markets are orderly. So what does that mean? That means that Nasdaq operations is normal. Even when we turn it up for a Nasdaq BCP, everything's operating normally. And whether you realize it or not, the reliability and confidence in US markets being fair and orderly markets, it's critical to all of us. It's critical to all of us. We all just take it for granted. But for Nasdaq employees, it's not just something that we expect. It is our responsibility to maintain these reliable markets. So we're reliably working from home. And then we have the March 16 and March 18 market-wide circuit breakers. The market-wide circuit breakers are programmed in the trading system. This is, of course, triggers our incident management process. And how are we going to accomplish our operational synergies I talked about before? We have operations and the engineers who develop the system. We sit side by side and we resolve incidents quickly. How are we going to do that working from home? Well, the reality is that many believe that we are more effective when we work from home. Remember the market open call I talked about? Well, that runs all day long. Folks don't leave. We're all there. Business and technology, we're all aligned, and we're working together to resolve these incidents. And that kind of ties us into our tools, right? So what are thematically the right tools that you want to have to support your business processes? You know, first of all, you need connectivity. Everyone needs the appropriate connectivity with Soho, VPN, even if it's just using your iPhone. You need to make sure that you have that connectivity and everything's set up appropriately. The next I'll say is visualization. So with all of these platforms, we have expert tools, and all of you have expert tools that run your platforms. These allow you to see all the bits and bytes going through your system and understand what's happening and allow you to resolve incidents and business service issues right away. But you also need a global view, right? You need, especially if you have large enterprise systems, you need a few tools, a few panes of glass that are all integrated. Systems like Datadog, the tools that will give you the service view, tools that are portable. They'll let you see what's happening. They'll help you know that what the folks in the US is what the folks in Asia, what the folks in Europe are seeing, and you have that global view. Also, clearly communication, right? You have to have the communication tools that are going to help you succeed. The video calls, the audio calls, they're critically important, but sometimes folks can't join. You need offline tools, and not completely offline, but you need non-verbal tools. So you need text messaging, and plus you need chat tools that people can see on their phones. And these communication tools don't just drive incident management, they drive engagement, right? So everyone can see what's happening. All right, some key takeaways. First and foremost is ensure your employees are safe. The compassion and the connection that Adina established with the employees went a long way. We all developed the understanding that she was very concerned with our safety and the health of our families. That was super important for our success.
And I think secondly, the trust that was established, folks were worried about job security. So Adina made a company-wide statement that there were going to be no layoffs at Nasdaq for the rest of 2020. Not that there were any planned, but just to make sure that everyone was clear, they didn't have to worry about their job security in this trying time of a global pandemic. So from that foundation of safety, health and safety, not fearing for the loss of your job, really set a foundation for us to build upon and be able to focus next on the job at hand, which was running the critical markets. And then as you saw, the extra variable of now let's all do that working from home and remotely that we had been well prepared for. But going through those step-by-step processes, I think another, Don, key point was just the communication.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't over-communicate. You need to make sure you reach out, understand where your employees are, how they're feeling, what their health is, and then have communication with regards to the whole operations to succeed. I guess another key lesson is the Hurricane Sandy that I shared. And the key thing is you've got to practice your BCP soup to nuts. You can't just assume that I'm going to react to things as they happen. You have to have something scripted, and you have to test your script, and you have to improve your script year after year, keep testing that out.
Yeah, and Don, I have to compliment you on every time there's a potential snowstorm on the East Coast or in Sweden or in Northern Europe, you take the opportunity to have the team work from home, and just like your story about the the fire extinguishers, if the snow never comes, we always learn something and gain confidence that we can run our markets remotely and successfully. So that I think I've never seen an ops team do that. A lot of times you just practice your DR, but you actually do it as a regular course of business. And I think it paid off during this global pandemic. I guess the last piece I would say about distributing our network operations, our global operation centers around the world. We do run our own markets. We also run markets on behalf of some of our customers. So we have a a reason to have global operation centers, but I will tell you the way that you've split it up and allowed each one to back each other up and have a lot of skills in different geographies creates a very distributed and robust and resilient operations fabric. So that is, you know, oftentimes you just have 2 operation centers. I would highly recommend, if you have an excuse, a reason to have more than 2, make them smaller and make them more numerous. Thanks for the time today. Hope you've enjoyed it, and we welcome any questions.